This morning began with yet another phony report from Axios' Barak Ravid and ended with more uncertainty and embarrassment for the American people. I'm not joking, it just will not end. And if there's really any question about how badly the United States has lost this war so far, well, here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio making it abundantly clear.
Our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be open, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls.
Well, okay, all right, well, there it is. The goal originally went from, pursuing the IRGC's complete surrender to asking if we could pretty please get back to where we were before we illegally attacked Iran. Luckily, we have, genius war strategists like Ben Shapiro to advise the Trump administration on what he describes as the easiest move for the US to make right now.
What Iran is mostly worried about at this point is that the United States permanently degrades its capacity for economic recovery. The easiest move for the United States to make right now would be to just blow up Kharg Island. Kharg Island, you could do an amphibious operation there, it's a lot riskier, or you could just blow it up. And that means that Iran has no refinery capacity. And that means their economy is basically sunk for the foreseeable future, which means the regime has no money to pay its own people.
Okay, well, it certainly would be easy to blow up Kharg Island. It's unclear how that would persuade the Iranians to lift their blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we've been crippling them with sanctions since 1979. Like, we have been doing whatever we can possibly do to crush them economically, and it hasn't worked. So it's also unclear how such an operation would, end the war or accomplish what people like Ben Shapiro actually want, what they really want, which is regime change in Iran. And look, they're not gonna get that. Everyone agrees that they're not gonna get that. Blowing up Kharg Island would accomplish one specific thing: more damage to oil infrastructure in the Gulf, which is what Iran has threatened to do in retaliation if they get attacked again. So that series of events wouldn't just, inflict pain on Iran and Iran alone, it would absolutely nuke the global economy. We would literally have a global depression on our hands, which wouldn't be so easy on the United States or the world's perception of Israel, would it, Ben? But it seems as though President Trump faces similar cognitive challenges on questions of war and peace, because this morning, Israeli stenographer Barak Ravid alleged that the Trump administration was inching closer to a real peace deal with Iran. Mere hours later, the president was already issuing threats, a fresh new round of threats to Tehran. And in yet another Truth Social post, he warned that if Iran refuses to accept his 14-point plan or deal, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. So what is in this US proposal? Well, Ravid claims that the deal would involve the United States lifting sanctions on Iran if the IRGC commits to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment, something they had already agreed to do earlier, but okay. The deal would also involve both parties lifting their blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is great, that's what we would want. And while a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry told CNBC that they're reviewing the proposal, chances are that Trump isn't really serious about it, which is why the Iranians have also said that they're kind of brushing it aside and not taking it too seriously. No one trusts Trump. Now, the Pakistanis are really hurting economically, which is why they're probably more hopeful than most. A Pakistani government official told MS Now that the prospect of a proposal to end the war is very likely in the coming days. But I don't really think so. Remember, Trump says all sorts of things that aren't true. I mean, when he announced the ceasefire, or at the beginning of the ceasefire, he alleged that Iran's 10-point proposal to end the war, which included, by the way, US reparations to Iran, was an acceptable basis to begin peace talks. And then he said the opposite later that same night. Anyway, hours after Ravid published that bunk news story, Fox News' Trey Yingst reported this.
Central Command says an Iranian-flagged vessel attempted to breach the U.S. naval blockade earlier today. CENTCOM says the vessel was warned multiple times before U.S. forces fired on it. The shots came from the 20-millimeter Gatling gun of an F/A-18 Super Hornet that took off from the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. This does come as the region is waiting to see if an agreement will be reached between the United States and Iran.
Can we please just stop the daily humiliation ritual? Like, the American people don't deserve this. We don't deserve this. So why do we keep getting jerked around by the Trump administration? Why does he keep playing this game where he pretends as though peace is on the horizon? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Here it is.
Oil prices sinking right now on that Axios report that says the US and Iran are closer to a deal than at any point since this war began. A one-page, 14-point memorandum of understanding, or MOU, is on the table. As I mentioned, the markets really like what they see right now, and the report does signal that both sides want a deal after almost 3 months of stalemate. But of course, key hurdles remain. Iran's leadership is deeply divided, and narrowing the gap on critical issues for the Gulf states here, like who controls Hormuz long term and the fate of Iran's proxies, its missiles and its drones, are all going to be key sticking points.
Was that a real reporter or AI? Like, that guy seemed like he might have been AI. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, market manipulation, duh. The only thing that President Trump seems to excel in his second term. And it's pretty sick that his Israeli minion over at Axios keeps recycling the same hollow story to help him, do the market manipulation. And there is absolutely no indication that Iran is deeply divided. There really isn't. In fact, there is indication that the United States entered this war alongside a special ally that has completely different objectives than us. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu might have been, fooled by Trump's obvious market manipulation earlier today as a genuine call for peace. Because guess what the IDF did today? They started bombing Beirut, something that Israel tends to do as soon as they're in fear of a possible peace deal. Netanyahu claimed in an X post that the strikes on Beirut targeted some new boogeyman or boogeymen that we're all supposed to be worried about as he attempts to justify more slaughter in a sovereign country that doesn't belong to him.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.